So it's been a little while since I have done a video, probably at least 3 weeks. I discovered pretty quickly that doing a daily blog was just not going to work for me. I am not that structured. And trying to keep on top of it daily and trying to come up with topics to talk about when there may not be any changes on a daily basis was just not going to work for me. Plus, adding the thing at the beginning, I don't know what it's called, but it's basically like, hey, this is the page you're on, and welcome, is not going to work for me either. So, I think I'm just going to go ahead and upload probably straight from my phone most of the time. That seems to be the easiest mode for me to get stuff done. So, apologize for my hair being all over the place. I really need to take a shower, and I recently had it up in a thing like this all day, so it's just kind of got a mind of its own right now. But I decided that it was quiet and it was a good time to try to get another video up because a lot has happened since the last video. So among the things that have happened, I now think that I am not just dealing with a thyroid condition, but I'm actually possibly dealing with Lyme disease. My symptoms seem to match a good portion of the symptoms that come along with Lyme disease. I had kind of been presented with the idea of Lyme disease pretty early on to all my symptoms, but dismissed it for 2 reasons. One was because I knew that my TSH was really high. If you recall, it was at 409 at the highest, and it probably was higher than that at one point, but I'm not sure how high. And so I kept thinking that once I was on my medication and my levels were coming back down into range, that my symptoms one day would just disappear. That has not really happened. They have let up. I am not in as much pain most of the time as I was initially. I can move my legs. I can get up and move most of the time. When my TSH was super high, it became like my legs were like cinder blocks. Like, I don't know if you've ever tried to pick up something really heavy and you go and you think you can pick it up and you pull it up from the ground and it doesn't budge. That's how my legs were. I could barely move them, and my arms were the same way. Everything was heavy. Trying to move something, even a lightweight blanket, was a huge undertaking, and it was just a big problem. So in that respect, I'm feeling better. Mentally, I'm feeling better. I don't feel so dragged out and so tired most of the time. In fact, there's a big disconnect between my body and my brain, because my brain is like ready to do stuff. And most of the time, if I'm just laying there and I'm not moving, I don't feel any pain. But the second I try to move, it's like, oh yes, that's right. I'm dealing with a big problem here. So I had dismissed the idea of Lyme disease because we live in Wisconsin, and it was in January that these symptoms started. So it's not exactly, tick season. But it turns out that Lyme disease can lie dormant in your system for not just weeks and months, but actually years. And all of my symptoms seem quite familiar to the Lyme disease. So I have blood work scheduled for Friday, and I called my doctor's office asking if I can get in for Lyme disease testing. I'm half expecting that the testing will come back negative even if I have it. The testing is notoriously inaccurate and gives false negatives. So if it comes back negative, I'm probably going to go and try to do secondary testing with a lab that is more accurate. That I'll probably have to pay out of pocket for. So what has happened? Oh my gosh, a lot has happened. Like I said, for the most part, I'm feeling better. I have really bad days. This morning I woke up feeling pretty terrible. Tonight, surprisingly, I'm feeling pretty decently. Usually when I wake up feeling bad, it lasts for a day or two, the whole day, and doesn't start tapering. It just starts to taper off at the very end of the day, if it only lasts one day. But usually it goes for 2 to 3 days. So the fact that I woke up this morning feeling pretty horrible, but am now feeling actually really well, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing the video, is pretty interesting. And I have a theory to that, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So I had my ultrasound on my throat done. Have not heard the results back on that. I have a appointment with my primary a week from Friday. So I have the blood work Friday, and then my primary appointment a week from Friday. The Lyme disease testing apparently will not come back in that time frame. So I probably will not have the results once I go to my appointment. But we'll see what everything else says. I know that my B12 is being tested, my D3 is being tested, I think magnesium is being tested, of course thyroid is going to be tested. So we got a bunch of tests going on anyway. And since the last video, I have gotten Young Living. I signed up for Young Living to be a distributor, even though I really don't know much about oils. I was really hoping that the oils would be helpful to me. I don't know that they have been very helpful for the little bit that I've done internally, except for today. I think today may have been a different situation. But I think by using the diffuser, that was actually quite helpful. I used several different scents and have found a couple that I really like. So I'll go ahead and show you that right diffuser now. I got for, or with my premium starter kit. I really love the diffuser. It also has an ionizer on it, which is, I'm pretty sure is working well, because it seems to be catching some dirt at the bottom of the diffuser. Either that or that's just some of the oil being diffused or something. I'm not really sure, but at any rate, it makes me feel better, even if it's only psychological, when it's going. And I've had it going almost nonstop since I got it, and that was probably 2 weeks ago. I have a couple different oils that I really, really like. My favorite one right now is this one, which is called Stress Away. Let's see if I can, there we go. So that one right now is my favorite. I'm actually going to start it up here in just a second because it hasn't been going. And it's pretty easy to use. Basically, you put, it calls for up to 8 drops, but I have been doing 4 to 5 because I'm in a smaller room right now. And the first day that I got it, I put thieves in it, and I did 8 drops of thieves, and I thought I was going to die. I had to shut it off within 20 minutes. It'll go for hours, but it was so strong, and I really felt like I had consumed pumpkin pie. But at any rate, so it's pretty easy to use. You get this little pitcher thing. You put water in there, you put the oil in there, and then you go ahead and pour it into your diffuser. Inside, there's like a little switch that you're supposed to flip. You're supposed to flip up when you want to put the water in it. You're supposed to flip it down when the diffuser is ready to be used. So comes with this remote. Has different settings. I've not really used all of the different settings. I've not really used all the different settings. I pretty much use the on-off and the LED control. Sometimes I'll shut this off too, the ionizer, because if I have my baby in here, then the lights tend to keep her awake. So it's got different settings. The first setting, it'll rotate through different colors on the inside, but I'm just going to go ahead and skip to those. Whoops. Might be helpful to push the correct button. So I turn it on, and then this bottom button changes the color. So it's got that color. It's got yellow, which is hard to see. And then it's got this purple. But I'm going to switch it back to yellow and shut the light off. Actually, I'm going to leave it on that, and then I'll come back through and do all of them so you can see what it looks like. So this is the teal. the yellow, and the purple. So I generally like the purple, and so I'm going to go ahead and leave that on, but I'm going to go ahead and turn the light on. Okay, so I've really been loving using the diffuser. I just put the Stress Away in, and I honestly think that it does help to reduce my stress, if for no other reason than just because the scent is very pleasing to me. So the one I have in there now is Stress Away. My kit came with a whole bunch of different things. Came with Purification. I like this one as well. Frankincense, peppermint, lemon, copaiba, lavender, thieves, RC. This is supposed to be for respiratory care. Personally, I don't really care for the RC. It has an odd scent to it that I just don't care for. And then the Panaway. I am missing one oil, and I'm not sure which one it is. But at any rate, I had a friend send me the Idaho Balsam Fir before I even became a distributor. However, she sent me the copaiba, the Idaho Balsam Fir, and the frankincense in an effort to create what are called morphine bombs. You basically put 5 drops, I believe, of each. I'd have to double check on that, but 5 drops of each into a capsule and consume it, and it's supposed to be for pain management. Initially, when I used it, I did not find that it was very helpful. The pain I'm dealing with, I think, is just on a whole different level. Okay, so the Idaho Balsam Fir, some copaiba, and some frankincense was actually sent to me by a friend before I even became a distributor. And she sent it to me in an effort to try to help with pain management because I was in a lot of pain and she knew it. And she's a young living distributor, and so she really believed that it would be helpful to me if I had those 3 oils on hand to turn into what they call morphine bomb. You take a gel cap and you put several drops of each of them into the gel cap and then consume it, and that is supposed to be helpful for pain management. At the time, I had done it, I think, 3 different times, and I did not find it to be all that helpful. So I think it's just that the pain I'm dealing with is on a whole different level than what a lot of pain management medications would take care of. I haven't tried a lot. I tried ibuprofen for approximately a week at one point, didn't touch it. I had tried the morphine bombs through the essential oils to curb it, didn't seem to help. This is pretty much just a deal with it deal. I probably could have gone into the emergency room and gotten a strong medication, but since I'm nursing, that did not really seem to be a good option because it would be quite traumatic for my little one to suddenly be cut off from nursing from me. So even though we're supplementing mostly with formula right now, the fact is that she gets a lot of comfort from nursing, and it's also better for the babies too. So I don't want to take that away from her, even if that means dealing with the pain that I'm dealing with. It would be harder on me to cut her off and have her not understand than just dealing with the pain when it flares up. Usually when that happens, I just sleep through it, or try anyway. So there's been a couple of things that I've tried. I've used the Young Living essential oils. I did a layering effect. I used the copaiba in areas that on my body that were sore. I did the copaiba and then the panaway and then the peppermint, and then layered it again with another with like a carrier oil. And at one point I had it on just about every joint. It seemed to help a little bit. Smelled really good. And I noticed that my right hand seemed to be seemed to have the biggest effect with using the essential oils. And I think it's because that was the hand that I was using to rub the oils. But they're expensive, and I pretty much burned through it pretty quickly. When you've got your whole body joints acting up and that's your only option for pain management, you burn through it pretty fast. These are little 5 milliliter bottles. I'm actually going to be purchasing 15 milliliter bottles at the end of the month to have on hand. I try to avoid using it most of the time now because I know how expensive it can get. I kind of didn't realize that initially. I mean, I knew Young Living essential oils were expensive, but I just didn't realize how much I would go through and so quickly. So even not going overkill, like on each need putting 2 drops, you know, I ended up burning through all my oils pretty fast. I have a tiny little bit left, and the copaiba and the panaway, and I'm hanging on to that for a time that I am just completely and utterly desperate. Until I can get the other 15 milliliter bottles. So, another thing is that my birthday was recently. It was March 14th, and my oldest, who's 21, interestingly, has done a lot of research on the effectiveness of marijuana or cannabis. Same thing. And she's never been a drug user or anything like that. The topic has just been interesting to her, and she has dived into it and has learned a ton. So she wanted to know if I'd be interested in trying the cannabis oil. In Wisconsin, it is not legal to have cannabis oil unless you, not even legal under medicinal use. So hemp oil, however, does not have the psychoactive properties that is common with smoking marijuana or something. So she went ahead and bought hemp oil, and this is the 3rd night I've used it. I started it 3 nights ago, and so I've done 2 full days and 1 night. And I honestly am wondering if this is what's making me feel so much better today. I did take a morphine bomb this morning along with the cannabis oil, and I just fill it up into a little capsule, and I have a bunch of them in my drawer that I have access to, so I can take it first thing in the morning and then at night when I go to bed. The instructions on the bottle say 15 drops. So, I tell you, this stuff still smells terrible. I smelled it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't stick this on my tongue. I have a pretty bad gag reflex, and I was just like, oh, I can't do that. So thankfully I did have capsules on hand though. So, and once you consume them, it don't have any kind of weird burps that sometimes comes along with like fish oil and stuff like that. So it was a pretty easy deal. So this morning I woke up feeling pretty terrible. I went ahead and took the hemp oil along with the morphine bomb. I had made up some morphine bomb pills when I initially got the oils, and I had 2 of them that I hadn't used. So I used one yesterday and I used another one today along with the hemp oil, and pretty quickly later, probably within 4 or 5 hours, I started feeling drastically better. And tonight I feel a ton better. I just don't have the body ache that I was dealing with this morning. I mean, I couldn't even move. Usually, laying on the bed when my little one is brought to me, I'll put her between the wall and myself and let her nurse on one side. But this morning I couldn't even move, and I had been facing away from the wall, and my mom asked if I wanted to nurse her on the other side. I'm like, I can't even flip over. I was in so much pain. And, you know, I'm not a baby when it comes to pain. I've had 2 natural births, and I just have a pretty high pain tolerance. I'm pretty laid back, and I think that that's probably part of my nature for dealing with pain, is just having this kind of laid back attitude. This is a whole different level of pain, and not having any kind of escape from it has been really cumbersome. So feeling so much better tonight is interesting. I have had good days before, so I'm not completely sold that it's the hemp oil, but I am suspecting, I'm actually feeling good enough that I'm really suspecting that it could be potentially the hemp oil. Maybe a combination of the hemp oil and the morphine bomb. Recently, I did try this, and it's a homeopathy medication. I picked it up in the hopes that it would help. It was on it for probably a week or better, and I didn't really notice a difference, not with that particular one. However, I have also ordered a homeopathy kit through Joette Calabrese's website. If you don't know who Joette Calabrese is, she's well versed on homeopathy, and the whole understanding of homeopathy, and that like cures like, and stuff like that is very interesting. I really highly recommend you going to her website and checking it out, and that's joettecalabrese.com. And so I believe that's JOETTECALBRESE.com. I'll put it down in the description below. So, but the kit that I ordered is this top 100 remedies. So I got some of the bookwork that comes along with the order, but so far I'm still waiting on the remedies. So we've got a lot of different ailments going on in our family that I'd like to try to use homeopathy on. Interestingly, I had a friend give me some Ludi's homeopathic pills back in October because I was having migraines. I had started having migraines in July, and they had started increasing in the number and frequency. And so she gave me that, and you know, I would take it during the beginning of the migraine, and I'm like, this isn't helping getting rid of the migraine. I still go through the migraine and still end up throwing up. It wiped out my day. And but then my last one was December 24th. I had started tracking it. My last one was December 24th, and I haven't had another one since, and it's almost April. So after looking on Joette's website, I kind of discovered how homeopathy works, and that is not to necessarily cure that specific symptom right then, like an Advil would, but is to uproot the cause of what is creating that symptom. So I think what happened was I started taking that, and then it switched into a different type of symptom and moved it into a physical symptom that I'm dealing with now. And I don't fully understand homeopathy, but I'm just about willing to try anything. So, so what exactly is going on, I don't know. But the homeopathy, I think, is a good route to take. In combination with maybe the hemp oil, if it is working to help with my pain. So Friday I have the blood work to do Lyme disease testing. I'm really hoping that there's no hiccup with me falling into the 70% of rejected positive people. Because I really want to know what I'm dealing with. And if this is Lyme disease, I think I've been dealing with it for a really long time. My body seems to, now that I'm approaching 40, my body seems to deal with, or it starts to add these things, these ailments when I'm having a high stress time in my life. So, when I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, there was a lot happening with my dad, and he left home, and started having some legal issues, and it was a very, very high stress time. I was a daddy's girl, and there was just a lot going on in our family. And I think that triggered my hypothyroidism. And then most recently, the migraines started at the beginning of July. Again, another really high stress time. We had lived on a converted school bus, and we had just moved out to a farm to stay at, but we had dealt with a lot. I had the baby approximately 2 months prior, and it just, again, in a really high stress time. And I think that started the migraines. And then at the end of December, beginning of January, again, another really high stress time for me. Emotionally and physically. I had gone off of my gluten-free diet. I'm celiac. We had not had much money, and we had been gifted a bunch of food by somebody, and a lot of it was gluten food, so I ate it. And so for about a month, I was off of a gluten-free diet. I think that very well could have been part of the reason why this has now been triggered. But the effects of the stress, and not just the stress like biologically because I haven't been eating gluten, but we had been having some financial issues because my husband had damaged his feet and wasn't able to work. I was trying to finish up school for the semester as well as take care of the family, and I was working at the same time. Of course, holiday season, we don't celebrate Christmas, but that time of year is just stressful. Spiral with my health. Interestingly, if this is Lyme disease, then I think this is probably the root of a lot of my problems that I've been having for a very long time. So it'll be interesting to see what the results say. Okay, so what else? I've not been wearing the brace on either of my hands for probably 2 weeks. So that's a huge improvement, because when I would try to, I can still feel some of the tightness in my wrist, but when I would try to bend it at all before, it would just be excruciating. And so trying to keep it stabilized in the brace was necessary in order to keep my hands from feeling like they were going to break. Okay, so my wrists are doing a lot better. I still have occasional flare-ups where everything hurts, but for the most part, I'd say that I'm on the upswing of how I'm feeling. I will be having the testing for the TSH done on Friday, and I'm pretty close to, my range is going to be pretty close to be within where it should be. I have been feeling good enough to try to at least work with my kids on homeschool. It's been several weeks since they've been able to have anything done with them because I've been feeling so bad. So now I think I've kind of gotten to a point where I can start working with them. It's still really difficult to try to hold stuff with my hands. Like, I can't grip very well still, and it hurts. But it's different. It feels like it's trying to get better. Oh, one of the interesting things that I've noticed is, I've been pretty much bedridden now for almost 3 months. And my muscles are starting to get very weak. My back muscles, I've been trying to make sure to sit up now that I'm feeling a little bit better and I feel like I can get out of a chair. Trying to sit up is very difficult. And part of that is that the muscles in my back are weakened from not having been in use. I've been pretty much laying down for 3 months. My knees are starting, like my left knee, I don't know what's going on with it. It popped one day, really weird, and started getting a bump on the end of it. So I think that was a bursa thing. That went away after a couple of days, excruciating during that time. Sorry about saying all the time. I really should just make a list of stuff that I want to talk about. The problem though is I still can't really write. I tried to write some stuff tonight and it looks atrocious. I really didn't look like my handwriting at all, and it was barely legible. So that's obviously something else I'm going to have to work through. So the tops of my hands are starting to really thin out. It's hard to see on here, but usually my hands have a very kind of strong look to it because I use my hands all the time, or I used to. But now they're starting to resemble what you would see with somebody who's quadriplegic, and that scares me. I don't want to not have use of my hands. So even though I'm using them, it's not as much, and the tops are just, you can see the muscles and tendons like you could in somebody who's quadriplegic. So this whole thing has been an interesting road, and I am really looking forward to getting some answers. So there's the update, as long as it is. One of the other things is in the near future, I hope to order a 23andMe test. I am looking specifically for the MTHFR gene mutation. I suspect that our family has that. My youngest has a strawberry birthmark on the back of her head and the sugar bug vein across the bridge of her nose. And my other two also had the sugar bug vein, the other two younger ones. My older one has a different father, so I don't remember if she had the sugar bug vein or not, but she's partially vaccinated. However, people with the MTHFR vaccine, MTHFR gene mutation should not be vaccinated because it's notorious for killing children that have that gene mutation, as well as causing a host of other issues, including potentially autism. So, thankfully, I chose not to vaccinate. I really felt a conviction in my spirit, even prior to becoming a believer, to just not do it. That my intuition just went haywire with the idea of vaccinating, particularly my son. Now I think that's because we probably had that gene mutation, and I just instinctually knew that this was going to harm him. So, looking forward to getting the results back on that at some point once I turn it in. So I'm probably looking at like a month and a half or so from now before I actually try to submit the test. But it's one of the things I'm really looking forward to in the near future. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, whenever you're reading this, and shalom.